Pyrex is private equity's latest victim, facing declining quality and plant closures under the ownership of a firm seemingly hell-bent on running the company into the ground. Once an iconic brand that sold high-quality cookware, it's now a shell of its former self, and those measurements on the side seem to wash off twice as fast as they used to. After the company behind Pyrex filed for bankruptcy, the private equity firm Center Lane Partners swooped in and bought it in 2024. Only a year later, they shuttered Pyrex's Pennsylvania factory after nearly 130 years of operation. To streamline production and trim the fat, operations moved to the factory of its largest competitor, Anchor Hawking, which is also owned by the same private equity firm. This series of acquisitions and mergers raises serious antitrust concerns, as two of the largest American glassware brands now operate as one, giving consumers a mere illusion of choice. Legal action against Pyrex has failed to stop this potential monopoly from forming, and because private equity firms are allowed to operate with impunity, consumers face degrading quality of not just glassware, but all goods and services. I've had issues with Pyrex products in the past, namely their measuring cups. No matter what you do, the numbers on the side always wash off. I end up buying new measuring cups every other year because of this issue. During the pandemic, I fell victim to Pyrex's scheme that got them in trouble with the Federal Trade Commission, where Pyrex outsourced their manufacturing to China while claiming their products sold on Amazon were made in the US. It's clear Pyrex went with the lowest bidder because in 1 or 2 dishwasher cycles, the measurement markings slid right off. Though this should have tipped me off that something suspicious was going on, I've become far too accustomed to the quality of brands declining over the decades. Anecdotally speaking, my grandmother's Pyrex measuring cups still had the measurement markings on them after over 30 years of dishwasher cycles. What could possibly cause quality to decline so precipitously? As it turns out, Pyrex, made before 1998, was manufactured by an entirely different company. Before a slew of mergers and acquisitions ran quality into the ground, it operated under the company Corning, the leading glass manufacturer that invented Pyrex. When it debuted in 1915, it was a miracle product. Made of a resilient formulation of borosilicate glass, it was a welcome addition to the American kitchen. Borosilicate glass is far more resistant to cracking from rapid changes in temperature. The addition of boron makes it much harder to break, and before Corning scientist Jesse Littleton gave his wife Bessie an improvised casserole dish made out of this thermal shock-resistant glass, no one thought to use it in consumer products. After a successful launch, Corning purchased the Macbeth Evans Glass Company in 1936 to manufacture their Pyrex cookware out of their factory in Charleroi, Pennsylvania, and that factory continued to operate until a series of unfortunate events led to its closure. The first domino to fall was when Corning spun off its consumer products division in 1998, as they were likely preoccupied with making more profitable things, such as radar-transparent nose cones for missiles. This spin-off company operated under a handful of different names before settling on the name Corelle Brands in 2018. Meanwhile, their competitor Anchor Hawking, another large American glassware manufacturer, was also undergoing never-ending corporate restructuring. Anchor Hawking's Wikipedia page has a dense and lengthy section about the company's history of mergers and acquisitions, as labyrinthine as Jesus' lineage in the Bible. Pyrex and Anchor Hawking's paths converge when, after purchasing Anchor Hawking in 2021, the private equity firm Center Lane Partners also purchased Corelle Brands in 2023. But by that time, Corelle Brands had already merged with Instant Brands, the makers of the Instant Pot. If you're confused by all this, I am as well, and I'm only half certain about who owns who, even after a ton of Googling. This slew of mergers and private equity acquisitions is what the lineage of most storied American companies looks like at the moment. Despite being a boogeyman in discourse about the economy, nobody seems to know what private equity does. Essentially, private equity firms are the bottom feeders in late-stage capitalism. After companies become laden with debt after years of restructuring and declining sales, private equity firms swoop in and gobble them up. The inciting incident in the case of Instant Brands was their bankruptcy filing in 2023, making them a decaying animal ready to be torn apart by these vultures. Private equity firms, such as Center Lane Partners, are driven solely by profit. Their goal is to acquire a company and streamline operations as much as possible over the course of a few years in order to turn a profit when selling it. Whether they destroy the company in the process is not their concern, as long as they balance the books and ensure their numbers are in the black. The closing of Pyrex's Pennsylvania factory, which resulted in 270 workers losing their jobs, was a direct result of this private equity acquisition. Private equity's MO is to streamline operations as much as possible, which is why they're moving the production of two allegedly different brands under the same roof. This is detrimental for the consumer because Anchor Hocking and Pyrex are your only two choices for American-made borosilicate glassware. When it comes to measuring cups, all other glassware to my knowledge is made overseas. Off-brand glass measuring cups like this private label one from a big box store don't hold a candle to Pyrex or Anchor Hocking glassware. I stepped out of my comfort zone and bought it at Target, and after only a few dishwasher cycles, the measurements on the side have completely washed off. At this moment, it does not serve its only function, which is measurement. This is the state of Pyrex and Anchor Hocking's competition. It's non-existent. Now that Pyrex and Anchor Hocking have merged, I'm concerned that the quality of their glassware will further degrade. Private equity firms don't just close factories, they pinch pennies wherever they can at the expense of the consumer. After my disastrous experience with Pyrex and their off-brand competition, I have switched to Anchor Hocking glassware. For many years, I've been satisfied with the quality of their products. Though the numbers still wash off eventually, they come off much slower over time. I realize that using the dishwasher can speed up this process, but these measuring cups are advertised as dishwasher safe. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong as I'm following the manufacturer's care guidelines. Now that Anchor Hocking's private equity overlords have gutted their competition, I worry that choosing Anchor Hocking over Pyrex will make no difference. I don't know whether they're making each brand separately at the factory, but I'd assume making all their measuring cups with the same factory process would make production significantly cheaper. However they choose to make their product, I imagine they'll default to whatever method costs less. I know nothing about glass manufacturing, but the idea of a glassware monopoly concerns me. This predicament mirrors that of other brands run into the ground by private equity. The story is always the same. A company founders and private equity swoops in to capitalize on its demise. Private equity has sunk the likes of Toys R Us, Jo-Ann Fabrics, and it appears Red Lobster might be next. It seems silly to say, but in a country where there's not much to do but buy stuff, these brands were cultural touchstones in a way. In their prime, they provided important goods and services to their customers. Often when one of these businesses goes under, there's no adequate competition to step in and replace them. Besides big box stores and small specialty shops, toy stores have gone extinct. Additionally, Jo-Ann Fabrics was one of the last places you could buy fabric in person. Buying fabric is a very tactile experience, where it's crucial to be able to feel the product with your fingers and inspect the quality of it up close. E-commerce stores cannot offer that experience, and now many sewers buy their fabrics blind. Though I don't sew, I do cook, and I'm worried that Pyrex and Anchor Hocking are next on the chopping block. Private equity is slowly degrading our quality of life, but what can be done about it? Often I see comments under a news story about private equity running a business into the ground that call for an outright ban on private equity. I question how such a thing could be implemented, as that would involve a ban on private businesses turning a profit, something that's fundamental to capitalism. Of course, there are other economic systems besides our degraded system of capitalism, and considering how bad things have gotten, any alternative should be on the table. There may also be less radical solutions that could limit private equity's influence on American companies. Though it's hard to eliminate private equity entirely, you can restrict the activities private equity engages in that cause the most harm to businesses. Though I'm not a policymaker or economist, blocking mergers, sales, and acquisitions should be one of our government's top priorities. The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1819 is still on the books, and it took down the robber barons of the past by breaking up monopolies. If this was done before, certainly we can do it again. Contrary to the best interest of the American public, private equity has instead been allowed to operate relatively unrestricted. This current administration doesn't seem to have any plans on stopping these firms from gobbling up every struggling company. Though people have portrayed private equity as a horseman of the apocalypse, its activities are a symptom of the gradual decay of our economy. Though some of us experience this decay acutely, like the workers who lost their jobs at Pyrex's plant in Pennsylvania, the rest of us experience this decay as a general malaise, afflicting American consumers. Perhaps you don't know the history of Pyrex or its corporate ownership, but the decline in quality of the goods and services we rely on is felt across the board. Private equity is, in part, a boogeyman of the weak blamed for all our ills, but in reality, it's just another cog in the capitalist machine, grinding up our lives built around consuming products. Anyways, I'm Robert Tolpe, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I hope you have a good week. Bye-bye!